Welcome to the Digital Dialogues podcast by Virtual Vision, hosted by Amanda Stichter. In each episode, we talk to real people with real insights as they share their real experiences. Our guests are some of the service industry's top experts. Covering a wide range of topics, you are sure to hear truth bombs and industry wisdom that you won't want to miss. The Digital Dialogues podcast. Tune in on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Digital Dialogue podcast brought to you by Virtual Vision. I'm your host, Amanda Stichter, and I am excited to be joining you today for another episode. The Digital Dialogue podcast was designed to facilitate casual but valuable conversation with some of the service-based industry's top experts. In each episode, we bring you real people with real insights, sharing their experiences and expertise to benefit professionals in the service-based industry. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or you're just starting out, our conversations will cover a wide variety of topics, from digital marketing and technology needs to business strategies and customer service. And today, I am joined by a couple of industry masterminds that I had the pleasure of meeting a few years ago, the team from Earthvisionz. Welcome, and thank you guys so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here.
Well, why don't you start by introducing yourself to our listeners? Maybe you could tell us how many years you've been in the restoration or service industry. And let's just throw in a fun fact, something that I like to ask people. What is your favorite way to take your coffee?
All right, you want to start, Jeff?
We're drinking decaf these days, which makes us really outcasts in the world. But you know, we get so hyped up about our software, we have to calm down with a cup of decaf. Plenty of cream, plenty of sugar for me. You, Craig?
Yeah, well, a little bit less thick here, Jeff.
Okay, we'll go with that. Craig is our CTO. I'm the president and co-founder.
And how long have you guys been in the industry?
We've been in the restoration recovery industry for about 6 years.
That sounds right.
That's when the company kind of pivoted. We're a mapping company at our core. We're a spinoff from an environmental engineering company. So we did a lot of very cool work. We built a mobile app for the PGA Tour that tracked golfers on golf course imagery in real time. That app was very popular. We had users in over 100 countries. So we were kind of a mapping services company for quite a while.
Sure.
The old solution looking for a problem. But we pivoted in about 2018-19 to really focusing all our efforts on risk management, disaster and threat tracking, visualizing data on our map command center, and delivering alerts to our clients that help them make decisions. So it came out of the technology, originally came out of a long project with the U.S. Air Force. Back when Earthvisionz was really an environmental engineering company, we did a lot of work understanding groundwater contaminants, things like asbestos in Air Force barracks. So we built a whole platform on top of Virtual Earth called NASA World. So we've been working with maps and 3D models and that kind of integrating live data and showing it on a map for about 12 years.
Wow.
So that's a little background on the company.
And as simple of an explanation as that was, just some of the words that you mentioned, that is why I called you the masterminds, because man, it takes a special skill set to be able to understand data to the level in which both of you do. And I know we'll get into talking about that even a little bit more today. So obviously you guys are here representing Earthvisionz. And I've been able to work with you very personally, over the course of the last couple of years. So the mission statement of Earthvisionz, I pulled this from your website, to integrate hundreds of sources of accurate information visualized on your map command center and delivered to key stakeholders during any critical event, minimizing risk, initiating repairs, and helping recovery professionals restore communities to normal. Okay, what does that practically mean? Give me your, whichever one of you wants to take this, give me your 2-minute elevator pitch. Who is Earthvisionz? What do you provide to the restoration industry?
I think I can take a stab at that. First of all, Amanda, I wanted to put in a little thank you to Virtual Vision. We've worked with you guys for 2 years. We engage with you because you are experts in the restoration and recovery industry. So that's been a very excellent relationship for us. And anybody that looks at our website will see a lot of your work. So we're appreciative not only of the relationship over the last 2 years, but being invited to do this podcast. So thank you for that. In terms of your question, that was a mouthful. Basically, Earthvisionz discovered a gap in the marketplace when it comes to tracking threats and risk. There are many alerting apps, weather alerting apps of all kinds. There are big companies and small companies in that space. There are obviously a lot of map platforms, Google Maps, Esri. There are many others, some of them integrated with other companies. But what we saw was that companies that were using maps to do various things and companies that were hooked up to alerting services had those two applications fairly separate. So our mission became to connect real-time data, alerts with locations on the ground. So you could really get a full view of what was happening in real time for the purpose of making decisions and keeping people informed, whether it's community leaders, your vendors and contractors, your customers, that they could actually get alerts that are connected to their properties viewed on the map. So that happens in one process. You get an alert, you push a button, the map opens, there's the property that's being flooded, burned, etc. So it's a very simple way to manage risk visually and in real time.
You know, I vividly remember 2 years ago when I first started working with the two of you and you described your technology to me. Obviously, I call you masterminds because there are parts of it that I will never understand how it works. However, I remember it being one of those moments where someone describes a problem that you didn't even know existed or could exist in this space. Once you described it, I remember thinking, oh, yeah, that makes so much sense. And once you see that problem and that there has to be a solution to it, it's almost like you can't stop paying attention to it. So I think you guys provide that really, really well. This idea that there's a problem, that we need to see what's happening to the properties that we're managing, to the properties that we need to restore or go out and initiate this action on. But we can't do that if we don't have a system that's not telling us that that needs to happen. So I remember that very distinctly.
Yes, I mean, that's kind of the peace of mind. There's an emotional appeal to all kinds of products, but kind of what we say is, we help you sleep at night because if something's coming, you don't have to get up in the middle of the night and log on to a map command center. You don't have to, it's very proactive. We're going to alert you and tell you anything that's coming towards any properties that you care about. And,
right.
It's also easy to hook up key stakeholders in your organization to get alerts and access the map command center. They don't have to do any training or sort of have their own version of this. Our customers can just hook up their clients to get alerts and access the map for their properties only. So it's just it's not complicated as to how our end users are able to access the data. We've tried to make it very simple because, we're dealing with essential workers who show up when people are in terrible straits. They've lost their homes, their businesses, and anything we can do to make the actual tracking of what's happening easy and not have to go to dozens of websites or multiple apps. We're a data aggregator, and our mission has been to pull in all these types of threat data and push them to our end users through one platform.
I love that. So, I mean, really, we're talking about some technology related to geospatial technology.
Correct.
Can you explain super simple terms for our listeners who might not be familiar with that sort of technology? How does your live platform work, and how then does that benefit businesses that, function within the risk assessment and response space?
Yeah, Amanda, I'd be happy to do that. In fact, I have a visual aid, so I'm going to share my screen so you can see that.
Fantastic.
All right. Okay, so in a nutshell, the way that our product works, our VAlert Live Map platform works, is it basically allows our customers to choose locations and facilities, assets, maybe vehicles that they want to track within our system. And then they get uploaded to the map platform so that they're able to visualize on the map those locations and how they're being affected by events that might happen. So, for example, a hurricane's a good kind of an easy one to think about, and we'll go maybe talk about that a little more later on in the conversation. But basically, the idea is that you would be able to see where your locations are relative to an event like that, and know what kind of winds or storm surge or flooding or what have you might be affecting them. And then the other thing that what we do provides is the ability to have the system just proactively send you alerts, send you emails and other kinds of messages to you as maybe as a restoration company or other kind of service company, but also where you could set it up to send those alerts they could send those alerts to their clients and be able to say what's happening and how are you affected by these events so that you have peace of mind, you can prepare and respond well. And kind of some quick examples of how that is helpful is it helps our customers quickly identify their total level of exposure and which locations are most at risk. It helps them to mobilize appropriate resources to respond to CAT events. It helps them to manage their teams as they respond in highly dynamic situations, knowing where people are, knowing where their vehicles and personnel are, and helping them to be able to get around in a dynamic situation where there might be flooding or road closures or whatever, and then helping them communicate more effectively with their customers in kind of a time-critical environment where it's really important for everybody to stay engaged and on top of what's going on.
Absolutely. Well, and you kind of hit on it in an earlier note. Well, both of you did that when the benefit of this is that there's really like an emotionally charged experience happening for whether it's the person or the people that are in the middle of that threat, right? So to be able to give those people whose job it is to come in and restore, you had said specifically in your mission statement, I got to pull it up again here, but helping recovery professionals restore communities to normal, when you can engage with them and provide them the information, that's so valuable to the level of discomfort that they're feeling in whatever, trauma took place.
Yes.
So that's very incredible. So you mentioned automating alerts, specifically even to key stakeholders. And I think you probably touched on it a little bit in the last slide, but how does that feature work and help the businesses stay informed during those critical events?
Right. Yeah, I mean, the challenge when you've got one of these CAT events, like I mentioned, is really because it is dynamic. You've got a hurricane coming, for example, and you don't know exactly where it's going to hit. That information is changing as forecasts change, but being able to share map views, collaborate with your key stakeholders and say, okay, today it looks like it's going to go here, and then tomorrow we can see it's adjusted ever so slightly, so a slightly different subset of properties that is at risk. It really helps to be able to do that in a timely way. Our system allows our customers to be able to tag all kinds of critical data with these alerts so that they have the list of the properties and information about maybe safety information for those properties, pre-loss assessment plans, contact information for who are the people that we need to get engaged at different points in the process. And then we would also say the visual nature of the tool is really important. You obviously heard it said that a picture is worth 1,000 words. We've really found this to be true in a pressure situation where every minute counts. The ability to really see exactly what we're talking about, see the situation with the weather events, but also be able to look at like the structure of the building and those kinds of things can really help people to know what they're doing and be more efficient.
Very, very powerful. And you've addressed, really kind of the high level. Let's talk day to day. So could you provide some insights for how your platform helps restorers in their day-to-day operations? Obviously, we've spoken a little bit to the CAT events that happen. What does that look like on a day-to-day aspect, even in the periods where there's not, that event that's happening in that very moment?
Good question. I mean, that's going to be a conversation about some of the evolution of this software platform recently over the last couple of years. Day-to-day operations, I mean, I think we've gone through, you're getting alerted, you're able to see assets on the map. When there aren't CAT or major severe weather events, restoration companies need to keep working and keep busy. And, a lot of restoration work, as you know, is not purely weather related. It's just pipes leaking. There's all kinds of damage events that are not related to severe weather. A couple that we have integrated into our system are structure fire alerts. We can go over a couple examples in the case study portion of this, but restoration companies, when there's not a hurricane or a wildfire, they want to keep trucks moving and people working and get jobs. So we've created a structure fire alerting system with data that restoration companies have really requested. We push into the alert, including building ownership information, contact information. Getting there first is one benefit, but as we talked about a little bit earlier, restoration companies almost all now have somebody with the title of emergency response coordinator.
Right.
And when you're showing up to a burned building, you want to represent that you know what you're doing and you have the technicians and equipment to make these repairs. But also the empathy. You're showing up to somebody who's just lost their home or their office. So the data that we're pushing into the alert, I think, helps you respond with quite a bit of information about what you're going to find when you get on site. So I think that helps the responders come in and have some empathy for the people that have suffered the loss, and then also be able to say we can handle this job right now. Also see what other damage has occurred around the building. Very often a building will burn and there's smoke damage in the next structure. So it helps you be able to see in real time what are the impacts on the surrounding areas. So that's all pretty helpful for operations people who are tasking contractors and telling them where to go. A lot of our customers have kind of their map command center, and they're federating out alerts and data to their field teams. Right.
I have to go on a rabbit trail quick for something that you just said. I think every single podcast conversation that I have had so far with anyone in this industry has come back to the idea of empathy and how it relates day in and day out with the actual like business aspect of what we do, because very few other industries have to manage both sides of that, you know.
Right. It's government. I mean, the firefighters and police do, but private industries, the restoration industry is kind of unique in that.
Very much so. But I can see where if someone is coming in, let's use your example of a structure fire, for how they can help the person who just experienced that loss. If they're having to show empathy and also gather information, that's a lot to do in that moment. And I think often, especially in the hustle and bustle after, you know, a large loss like that, um, it could be challenging to truly display empathy as you need to, because you also have to gather everything. So to have that initial information at your fingertips so that you can focus first on the response of the person that you're
Yes.
dealing with and then work through the details, that is transformational, truly.
We think it is. It's, you know, every business is making money. You know, I mean, if you're not making money, you're not in business. So I think in part that's the line also. I mean, you know, I've never met an owner of a restoration company who wanted to be called an ambulance chaser. That's not how they operate, and we try to help them by giving them information that enables them to show up prepared with the right people, with the right equipment, with the right trucks and gear. So that in a way is showing empathy. You're not just showing up saying, I want this job. You're showing up indicating that you have the expertise and the compassion in one package to handle this.
Right.
So yeah, that's, you know, those are really good points about this industry, because, you know, when your house is flooded, you want to see a restoration company show up. I mean, that's all you want in that moment. So,
yep.
Yeah, that we tried to, you know, we've built out data feeds and information over years to try and aid with that process of showing up on a job site and really being prepared.
If I could add one other thing, I think that part of what the other piece of this package for us with the alerting piece and the ability to share the alerts with stakeholders is really trying to promote peace of mind. So it's part of that kind of empathy package of saying, with our restoration company partners are sending out alerts with their branding on them and being able to say, look, we know what's going on. You can have confidence that we're on top of this and we're prepared to help you with whatever is going to occur. That's really helps on an emotional as well as a practical level as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for letting me go down that rabbit trail.
Sure. It's an important one.
It is an important one, that is for sure. So one of the things that your website mentions is the concept of overlaying real-time satellite imagery to assess property damage. So let's take a step back, explain that process in a way that someone who's not familiar with that technology could understand and what that looks like.
Sure. So yeah, that's definitely one of the most popular features that we offer. There's a lot of interest in that. And to put it simply, we partner with, you know, we're at our core, we're kind of a data aggregation company. That is, we're getting data information from a bunch of different places, and we're trying to put it together in a way that makes it usable, actionable. So that's true with the satellite imagery things as well. We've got a number of different public agencies and commercial ventures that we work with that operate satellites and fly planes, and do so in the aftermath, typically of a big cat event, to allow people to know what happened. Basically, the idea is that they're taking all of these photographs. They all get stitched together so that they can be overlaid on the map, so that you can toggle between, here's the before view of what these properties look like, you know, yesterday or a week ago before the event happened. and here's what they look like now. You can see the soil erosion. You can see that the roof is missing. You can see whatever it is that's happened to the property, at a glance very quickly, to be able to know, kind of how to respond to that. Is this a total loss situation? Is this a situation where some roof repairs might be effective? And so that can really help. And, we're usually able to get that kind of information starting about 24 hours after an event, maybe even before it's possible to get boots on the ground, as it were, to the location. Because of road closures, it's just not safe. But of course, the satellites are flying overhead all the time, so they can take those pictures. You can't get there.
On a really practical level, I mean, look at what's happened in Florida in the last couple of days. I have no doubt that your system probably is functioning in the capacity to help multiple people, deal with the losses that are coming from that, storm damage event, and the tornadoes.
Right.
As you're speaking to that and the satellite images, that's what kept popping up in my mind as I've seen, the reels of the befores and afters the last couple days, and just all the damage that they're seeing down there.
Right. Yeah, it's really tremendous.
So one of the things I love to talk about on my podcast is looking at some future trends, the way that shapes the restoration industry, and specifically, what that looks like for you and what you are doing in the industry. Can you share any future developments or trends in geospatial technology that might impact the service-based or restoration industry, or property management?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this should be obvious. AI is something that everybody is talking about, and that's definitely something that we're seeing as having an impact in the geospatial technology industry as well. For example, one of the top requests we hear for is, you guys are providing so much valuable information, but it's sometimes hard for me to quickly utilize that information to know what to do with it. Is there a way you can help to synthesize what you're doing, put it together, and just help me to get just the bits of information that are most relevant to me at the right time, and help me to, concretely know what I need to do to take action? How do I need to respond in very simple, very detailed terms, without having to wade through reams and reams of other things? And so that's where we're really seeing the industry going, is utilizing AI technology to be able to provide that kind of precision guidance for our customers, knowing what to do, how to respond, and what's going on, and again, more and more precise and actionable ways.
That's really cool. Really, really cool. So let's bring this into real life. We've talked pretty high level about what you offer, the benefits that it has, and I think that's kind of a no-brainer. Again, it's one of those moments where you start to realize that, oh, I had never thought that would be a problem, but of course it is. And of course you guys have this amazing solution to it. But I want to bring this into real life. Can you share some examples or case studies where the technology that you provide has made a significant impact in the restoration or disaster recovery industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a couple things we can share to try to be very concrete about what we've been talking about today. Let me share my screen again, and kind of go through a couple of things real quick that kind of illustrate that.
Wonderful.
So the first one that I wanted to look at, we've been talking about hurricanes because I think it's conceptually an easy one to understand. Of course, there's lots of other cases. You mentioned the tornadoes that have happened, and there's been a lot of widespread flooding. But conceptually, that is really what we do, is being able to provide this information. So, for example, when Hurricane Adalia hit the west coast of Florida last summer, as you can see in this map view we're sharing, our customers were able to proactively send data and map views to the property owners. Who is it who owns and is responsible ultimately for these buildings? Letting them get a dynamic view of what was going to happen in terms of things like I mentioned before: storm surge, flooding, wind damage, to better plan for the event so that they could collaborate on what kind of response is going to be needed, what kind of exposure, financial exposure do we have to this event, and what do we need to do both to prepare as well as we can for it, to evacuate our key personnel, to board up windows, etc., and then to know where to focus our efforts as we respond. And then after the event, what we were able to do for a national restoration customer, for example, was be able to help them to see where damage really was concentrated. We were able to provide crowdsourced photography data where you can see the dots on the map here in different colors where it shows the concentrations of, these are areas where reports are coming in live as people are able to get on site and take pictures of these structures are heavily damaged or destroyed, and be able to see where do we want to target our response efforts, where might we find those large loss issues that we might be best suited to respond to. So, for example, one of those locations might be this structure, residential structure, where you could obviously see catastrophic loss has occurred. And, being able to drill into all of those individual locations, see what has happened, what kind of facility, who owns the facility, what's the contact information, even if it's not already your customer, where they were able to see who would we reach out to and say, hey, we're available, do you need our help? We talked before about the satellite and aerial imagery, so I just wanted to show you a little bit of that. So this is, I don't know if you can see this, this is the exact same property we just looked at, but now it's an overhead view. So this dot is right on that house, and you can see how the roof of this house was just blown over here to the other side of the screen view onto this other building. And so you can really get a sense very quickly, visually, of the kind of damage that was caused by the event, and to kind of know what kind of equipment might I be needing for cleaning it up and for being able to stabilize, provide safety, and ultimately to restore and get people back to normal. And then, Jeff, I think you were going to share.
Yeah, I think, to kind of add on to that, one of our missions, in addition to providing lots of data, is to try not to provide too much data. Information overload is as bad a problem as not knowing what's going on. So we've built a lot of filter tools that try to deliver data in an alert format that's just what you want. So one of the case study examples we have, and as I said, we've been about a year now in providing structure fire alerts. We've, every restoration company is somewhat different from the next one. They're not all the same. Some are franchises, some are part of networks, some travel a lot to other states during CAT events, some don't. And what we've learned after many years in the industry is that if you're delivering an alert, you want to deliver an alert that's providing information that particular business needs. For example, on structure fires, some companies just really focus on residential fires and smoke damage, some on commercial, some only on large loss. So we've built filter tools that help, get the alert only for the kinds of events that you want to go get the job for. That wasn't put that well, but so we have a case study, a fairly new customer in Michigan got just alerts for one county, and they got a large loss job that they wouldn't have known about otherwise. And they were using, fire departments have some little mobile apps that send alerts, but we were giving them alerts for the whole county. They only wanted to see commercial stuff, not residential. And then using our business search tool, they were on site, they got the job pretty quickly, and they got it in a competitive situation. And then they were able to see that there was smoke damage to the building next door. And since they're on site, they had the contact information in the alert. They just called the building owner and said, we're commencing repairs on this structure. Do you want us to come over to your building? So they got two jobs in in one alert.
Wow.
So that was a use case that made them very happy. And
I'm sure.
they actually, that was during a trial run of the software, and they just signed a year license. So that's
It's
a win for
incredible.
everybody.
Absolutely.
The building owners got instant service. We got a new customer, and our customer got 2 jobs in 1 alert.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, truly, it's when you can see the visual reality of what your software does, what incredible depth of knowledge and data that you can get from that and the ways that that practically helps. I mean,
she's
both
very
of those
kind, isn't she?
examples. Well, I
This is a
called you
great
mastermind
podcast.
for a reason.
No, we really appreciate it. Obviously, thank you for all those
Of
kind
course.
words.
So I want to pick your brain for just a
Yes.
couple more minutes. As experts in the field, as the masterminds that you are, and truly you are, what advice would you give to businesses looking to leverage this type of technology for better decision making, especially if they're newer to the concept?
A very good question. As we've discussed somewhat during this podcast, companies have all different kinds of technology, including obviously the vendor management or work order management systems. When you're trying to determine what new software to bring in, it's tough.
I'm sure. Yeah.
That's a you have to train people. There's a commitment in money and time. I think what we're running into a lot is kind of the buy or build question. Should we license something out of the box, whether it's a weather alerting application or map system? And then what does that map system do? And how much does it cost? And what does it get me? I mean, there's a lot of sales operations that are managing sales territories using maps, especially in the restoration industry, where it's very location and specific property centric. So we run into companies all the time that have a map platform, and then they're getting some kind of alerts from somewhere, and then they have their work order management system, they have their fleet tracking stuff. So they've already got like 6 software applications, and someone else comes in the door and says, "We've got the greatest thing ever," and they're like, "Leave me alone." It's just too much. So one piece of advice: you don't want to replace everything you're doing. I mean, if you like Fleetmatics for your fleet tracking, keep it. I think that the answer I would have is what software platforms integrate the other things that you're using with the greatest ease and efficiency and simplicity. So you don't have to really start from scratch or start over with one platform that's claiming to do everything.
Right.
So APIs are really valuable in this world, where you can just pull the data in that you need. Other advice I would give is, really understand the pricing model, because software companies just always want to upsell, like pretty much every company. What are they selling you? And of the different software tools, what does each tool get you really? And do you need them all? So software companies want you to run everything through their platform. So I guess one piece of advice would be, are they willing to kind of custom set up their software for you, so you're only licensing what you really need and what impacts your bottom line?
Absolutely. Craig, anything to add to that?
No, I think Jeff covered that pretty well.
Okay. So what's one piece of advice that you would give to service-based businesses when it comes to utilizing technologies to improve their operations and service?
Yeah, I think, operations and service certainly work together. but there are many products that are for one or the other. I mean, obviously, there's all the CRM, Salesforce, HubSpot, and again, software companies, and I'm not saying we're an exception to this. There's a lot of bells and whistles. There's things that you look at and go, yeah, that could be useful, next year. See if you can buy from a software company what you need today, and if they'll let you add products and roll out things as the need arises, rather than trying to sell you a giant package of stuff, and you're only going to use 10% of this thing for the next 6 months.
Sure.
So rollouts are a word we like to use. This is the core product. Here's what it does for you right now out of the gate. And then in 6 months, you can add these other tools that can help you as your business grows.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Okay. Here is the last question that I ask everyone, related to what we spoke about today, or not at all. Generally, I just say not at all. But what is one thing, what words of wisdom could you share with our listeners, or one thing that you personally have been mulling over lately?
That's a good question. Certainly, most of the world is mulling over these days is whatever you believe about the causes of climate change, it's happening. And, I've heard this little speech 100 times now, but the world has to realize that things are going to happen, weather events and other events that never happened before. And, the 1,000-year flood is now an every other year flood. And, what is the business risk? What is the financial risk? What is the risk to human health and safety? That's becoming more and more top of mind. We also work in the lender services industry. These are companies that work for banks. Banks are now, real estate investors are asking the hard questions. Where should we invest? If you're looking at buying, a whole home community in an area that's had coastal flooding for the last 5 years, that's impacting decisions big time. So there's a lot of this industry is built up on flood modeling, risk modeling, where are events likely to happen? How can I protect, for example, things like my supply chain? California wildfires are a really good example, or really challenging example. I mean, homes are burning now. There used to be forest fires, and 5 years ago, we created all these wildfire alerts, and very rarely were buildings affected and burning. Those days are gone. Whole towns are burning up in a giant hurry. So, in terms of both financial and human risk, climate change is becoming top of mind for almost every business on Earth. So I think, being prepared, having as much information as you can before something happens, really having your emergency response plan together, having that available when something happens, so you're not looking for it, in a crisis. And in fact, generally having information available in a crisis where you're not in that moment saying, oh my God, what do we do? Businesses have come a long way in that, much more prepared than they were 10 years ago. But that's what I would say. This is all becoming more and more top of mind in the world of business and industry.
Absolutely. Craig, anything that you would like to share?
I mean, I think I would echo what Jeff said, but definitely in terms of what we've been sharing today, it's an unfortunate reality that we see that, a lot of our customers don't really prepare well for the future the way that I think that would be wise for them to do, that there's a reactive nature of something like a hurricane happens and the phone rings and people are like, can you help me get something going, in the next 10 minutes, I need this now, as opposed to looking ahead and saying, these events are going to continue to happen. I need to be ready. I need to be thinking about, as we live in a world in which there is this escalating series of disasters and events, how do I need to position myself for that? How do I need to be ready for that? And we hope to see, kind of people taking that more seriously and being more proactive.
Absolutely. Oh, goodness, because emergency response is beyond important. And that sounds like an understatement, but it truly is. It truly
the
is.
restoration industry is growing. Private equity is going.
Mm-hmm.
It's a growing industry and becoming more and more important.
Absolutely.
Yes, for sure. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. For our listeners who might, want to reach out, learn a little bit more, maybe see more of, the solutions that you guys have, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
You can call me.
I love
like to get called by people who want to know more about what we're doing. So I'll give you my phone number and my email address.
Great.
That's the best way to reach out to us at this moment.
Fantastic. Do you want to just state that live so that our listeners can jot it down if they want it?
We're in Colorado. My phone number is 303-875-1488. And my email is jeff@earthvisionz.com with a Z on the end. Don't forget the Z.
Don't forget the Z.
We're lost without the Z.
That's right. And of course, you can check out our website, as we talked about. Amanda's really helped us with that. Earthvisionz with the Z.com. And, we've got all kinds of information about what we do and ways to reach out to us. So we look forward to talking to anybody who heard this podcast and wants to know more.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, again, I'm so appreciative that you guys were willing and able to join today. And for our listeners, thank you for joining us for another segment of our Digital Dialogue podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Stichter, and today we got to talk to Jeff and Craig from Earthvisionz about the value of geospatial technology and turning data into actionable insights for your business. I am honored to host webinars and other podcast conversations just like this one with other industry experts on a regular basis. If you follow Virtual Vision on any of our social platforms, you can stay up to date on future podcasts or webinars. You can also visit virtualvision.com for more information. And with that, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.